Welcome everyone to a webinar series, Decipher the Dating Code, Solving the Mystery of Dating and Relationship in the 21st Century. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and I'm your moderator for today's workshop. So here is a quick bit about myself. I'm a cognitive behavior psychotherapist and marriage and relationship coach, passionate about helping people build healthy and long-lasting relationships. Now, these workshop series explore the many challenges of modern dating, from online interaction and communication struggles to emotional availability and genuine connections. So our goal here is to help you navigate today's complex dating scene with clarity, confidence, and purpose. Joining me today at this workshop is our expert panelist, Elliott Katz, a relationship coach and author of Being the Strong Man Woman Wants, and who will bring deep insight on how men can improve their relationship by taking charge more and being emotionally strong. But before we begin the workshop, I'll invite our guest panelist to briefly introduce himself, as no one else can do a better job. Elliott, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. It's great to be here. As Dan said, I'm a coach and I've written two books. One is Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants. The other is How to Get Your Man to Wear the Pants. The first one's for women. The first one's for men. The second one's for women. And this wisdom I share is really a result of my own journey of learning and the wisdom that made a big difference in my life. And I now share it with other people that I coach and who read my books.
Beautiful. Well, I'm very, very excited to be able to have you here today attending this workshop, and I'm looking forward to jump into today's topic. So let me get started with a real life scenario, Elliott, taken from some of my existing clients dealing with the topics that we'll cover today. So Andy, which of course is just a fictitious name, it's not his real name for confidentiality issue. He came to me frustrated one day and confused, and he started the session with, Dan, I don't get it. I do everything right, and still nothing works when it comes to dating. So as our session went on, a pattern became clear. He was always the one initiating the relationship, texting first, making plans, keeping the connection alive. So in the beginning, things felt great. So he had a great connection with that woman, but then the other person would slowly pull away. And when that happened, he would try even harder and over-invest. So he adds, the more distant they get, the more I try to fix it, but it just gets worse between them. So that was the issue, as we could figure out that it wasn't lacking effort. He was over-investing his time and energy. So when was the last time he said, so when he tried to be able to stood his ground and ask him, when was the last time that happened? And he could not even remember it. And that's the crazy part. So he realized that he was just not being kind here. He was being passive. So he tried to avoid conflict, suppress his needs, and made himself constantly available to the other person. So obviously he thought that made him a better partner, but in reality, it made him less grounded and less valued. So as he went on, he realized that he was making that mistake. He was putting too much energy, too much time. And when he pulled away, this is when he started feeling a shift. And we're going to talk about that today. So now let's talk about the Mr. and Miss Nice Guy always finish last, behind the myth of what is true or not. So is it true, Elliott, that when women ask, I want a nice man, I don't want the type A personality or the player, but then when a guy is nice, the women always associate him as a good friend. Why is that?
Dan, I've heard that story many, many, many times where a man, he tries so hard to please a woman. He thinks, I'm such a nice guy. I'm so giving. I spend money on her. I take her out to the nicest places. I, I, I just try everything I do to please her, and it doesn't work. And I explain to them, see, this is what, he thinks he's doing everything right, like you said, but this is the problem today, that the messages that men have heard today this is what they're doing. They're being nice guys. They're not controlling. And why is she pulling? Why is she friend zoning me? Why is she breaking up with me? And why does she go with that bad boy? And I explain to them, because you see, men today, this is what men were taught. They weren't taught what they need, what a woman really wants. And she wants a man who's strong, who makes decisions, who shows leadership, who takes responsibility. I've had so many women say to me, like, a man, he just wants to do everything I want. He wants me to make all the decisions. He wants me to, if he asks me what to do, and then he says, just tell me what to do, I'll do it. And he doesn't understand that when a woman, the woman told me this, when a woman always has to tell a man what to do, and it makes her feel like he's a child and she is his mother, and she does not want to be his mother, and she does not want to be intimate with someone she sees as a child. So, and a lot of my coaching is saying, this is what you have to do to become a stronger man. And and you'll see, one of the things, and I'm sure you do this in your coaching, is change yourself. One of the things I learned is like, people, they blame the other person. They don't, they think the only solution to this problem, this relationship, is for the other person to change. And I tell them, she's not changing. You have to change, and you have to change yourself to get a different response from her. And you have to be a stronger man who shows leadership. It wasn't just a pleaser. Women, yeah, I know men who are just pleasers, and they have a lot of women friends who they would like, but no, these women just want to be friends. It's very sad.
But then again, Elliot, I mean, when it comes to finding the right balance between being an asshole and a simp, we have to really understand the dynamic of that relationship. Because let's say we come across a woman that has been abused by narcissistic people, that have been abused by type A personality or egomaniacs or whatever it is, that treated them like dirt. And when she comes across someone that is nice, that is genuine, that is authentic, that is loving, that invests time, energy, and all that, then suddenly she gets out of her comfort zone, because the comfort zone is being mistreated, is being treated like garbage. But then when someone of the opposite personality comes in, then she's completely lost in terms of how to handle this relationship or how to handle this person. So even though we are trying our best to be able to create a good balance between the simp and the type A personality, it all depends on the other person as well that is involved, because we cannot control others. We can only control what we do.
Right, right. Well, it's interesting, but you see, though what you describe as two extremes, but of a woman's been involved with men who abused her, uh, that's horrible. But on the other hand, the guy who's a pleaser, just wants to do everything to please her, the nice guy, that doesn't satisfy her either. What you really need is a strong man who thinks what's best for the woman. He's not trying to control her. He's saying, well, this is what I think we should do. This is what I think is best. When there's a decision to be made, and a woman, and the woman says, well, we have this situation. What do you think we should do? And if the man says, I don't know, what do you want to do? Or he says, whatever you want, you decide. She doesn't feel protected. The most important thing that a lot of men today don't realize is a woman wants to feel safe and protected when she's with a man. So a man who can't make any decisions, who can't take the lead on anything, he thinks he's being so nice. I'm not controlling. But to her, she feels like, how will this man handle situations in a marriage and a family if he can't even choose a place to go for a cup of coffee? So that is a turnoff. So it's really, like you say, it's not either extreme. It's not somebody who's abusive. It's not someone who's passive. It's really a man who takes responsibility. He sees a situation. He says, I see this situation. I think this is what we need to solve this problem. What do you think? He doesn't come to her and say, oh, we have this problem. Tell me what you want me to do. I tell men, like married guys who just come home and they say to their wives, what do you want me to do? Just tell me what you want me to do. I'll do it. And I, he's doing the laundry, he's washing the dishes. I said, you know what? You don't seem to understand what you're doing. You're being a mother's helper. You're being a nanny. You're not being a man, a husband, and a father. You got to come home and see, I see this situation. This is how I think we can solve it. Are you okay with that? That's what a woman wants.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, I wrote a book called How to Understand Women in the 21st Century. And one thing that I noticed as well is that women has this misconstrued attitude in terms of that men expect them to read the woman's mind. So the women tend to say, don't worry, forget about it. And she hesitates, she withdraws key information so the man can actually construct something that makes sense, and he could actually not predict but anticipate the woman's behavior. But if the woman doesn't give any valuable insight to how and what's going on, Well, I'm sorry, but not a lot of people have the ability to be able to understand human psychology very well. So why are we putting the men in that position, especially now, Elliot, that you see with social media on how, how women complain about men. But you know what? At the same time, it's interesting because I have seen a tremendous shift. And now we see women insulting women about, get your shit together. If you don't treat your husband properly or your boyfriend, he's going to go and cheat on you. And don't blame him, blame yourself. So before there's it is a complete change. Like when you look at Pearl, I forgot the last name of that girl that started bashing on women, constantly saying that all women are just whores, they're just this and that. Because now we start seeing a complete, I would say, realignment of mindset, and now women are blaming women about their behaviors.
Right. I've seen a lot of those social media, on TikTok and YouTube.
Yes.
And yeah, those, actually, a lot of those, what they're saying is very valuable because they're really educating women to say, be respectful to your husband. Don't disrespect him. If you
Mhm.
disrespect him, he'll start looking elsewhere. But it's true what you say about women expecting men to read their minds, because that's what I found. That's why I wrote this book for women, How to Get Your Man to Wear the Pants. And one of the things I say is that, you're frustrated with him because he's always saying whatever you want. He won't make a decision. He won't wear the pants. He won't take charge of anything. And he thinks he's being this nice guy. And you're fed up with him and you want to divorce him. And I say, you have to understand, he really doesn't know. I tell this to women and they say, he was never taught. When I talk to divorced men and I say, your wife, your ex-wife, she really wanted you to take charge more, show more leadership, not just do whatever she tells you. They always say, no one ever told me this before. I was married 10 years. Why didn't anybody tell me this? Why didn't those marriage counselors that we saw tell me that you got to be more of a man? And men will say, even my wife said to me, she wants me to be more of a man. I really didn't know what she meant. Like men today were not learned these, they're not learn these things. In the old days, fathers were role models, grandfathers. Today, where you watch television, you watch movies, like where's a man, like not a bad boy, not a controlling tyrant, but a man who steps forward and sees a problem and takes charge and says, here, this is how I think we can solve it. And the woman loves him for it. And
But
if she disagrees, well, she could say, and okay, you made a good point. Let's compromise on it. But if you always just say whatever you want, she is fed up. She's ready to check out.
but here's the thing, Elliot. I mean, you make a very good point where the guy will take some initiative, and then if the woman doesn't like the idea because maybe it doesn't really she cannot find some fun in doing putt golfing, for example. So she could say, you know what, let's do something this or let's compromise, as you just mentioned. But the thing is that after so many years with being with the same person, and if that person have, as you said earlier, shown disrespect or kind of like put that guy down for coming up with some ideas that were not really relevant to the couple. And after a while, the guy stopped trying, Elliot.
Right,
But
exactly.
then at this point in time, damn if he does, damn if he doesn't. So for him to be able to find peace and serenity, he would prefer not doing it or not suggesting
Right,
anything because he knows he's going to be put down by his wife. So
right.
they're shooting themselves in their leg, not the men, but the women. And after that, they complain that the guy doesn't take any initiative. And then after that, they complain that, oh, well, you never really took into your mind to be able to suggest something. I said, I tried for 5 years. You put me down constantly. What the hell am I supposed to do?
You know what? I've heard that lots of times. Men will say, I tried to take the lead. I tried to make decisions. I tried to guide our family, but she always put me down. She always criticized. She always undermined me. And
Correct.
I just gave up and withdrew. And I said, whatever you want. I said, I'll just do what you want for peace. But okay, so what does the man got to do? So you could say, yeah, the woman has to change. She has to stop being disrespectful. But if you're the man being treated that way, how do you get her to do that? And what I tell men is like, just keep doing it. Just keep taking charge and making decisions. And if she undermines you, say to her, I think this is very important. Would you please support me on this? And just keep saying it. Tell her what you want. I want your support. Would you please support me on this? It works. I've seen it works. Just otherwise the men just, I understand. I was the same way. I gave up. I feel, okay, I'll just go along for the sake of peace. And you don't get peace. You're going to end up divorced because she's going to be fed up with you. No, and sometimes I tell men in those situations, what she's doing is she's testing you. Maybe she really wants to see, will you stand up for yourself? I'm undermining you. Are you going to stand up and stand up to me and tell me you want my support and you want me to what you want me to do? Because as I explained, if a woman's tests you that way and you don't stand up to her, she's going to think, well, you're weak and you will not make me feel safe and protected. So you have to stand up if it's wrong. I mean, if let's say, but the other situation, let's say she's making a valid point that what you're doing is a crazy idea. Well, maybe she's right, and maybe you should do it her way. But you have to decide, is she undermining you? Is she testing you to see if you really are a leader? Then you got to step forward and say, I think this is the right thing to do. And because you know what? You think you're going to get peace giving into her? You will
No,
not
no.
get peace. You will
I
not
agree
get
with that
peace.
one,
And
Elliot.
then I've talked to a lot of guys like that. They give in, they give in. There's no peace, I talk about one fellow I was coaching, things were not good in his marriage and his wife wanted all these renovations. And he says, well, maybe we could spread this out over 5 years. No, I want them all now. And so he thought, well, I'll give in. He nearly went bankrupt. And then they ended up getting divorced anyway, and they sold their house and the new owners enjoyed the renovations. But, you give in, you can't give in if it's wrong. You can't give in. That's a mistake a lot of men make. You can't give in if it's wrong. And then what happens is when it goes wrong, just like you knew it would, then you blame her. I did this because you wanted it. And she hates you for it. Because if you knew it was wrong, you had to stand up and say, we can't do this. It's wrong.
Yes. And as you said, like consistency is key. And I like what you mentioned about every time that you try to suggest something, ask her or add the sentence, please support me on this with this one. Because
Yeah.
if you repeat this, what's going to happen to her subconscious mind? She's going to capture that sentence. And then if anything happens, you could always say, you never supported me. You never really agreed with me. And then she's going to remember all the time that you anchored that sentence in her brain. Please support me with this. Eventually, she's going to start believing that phrase, and she's going to feel bad if she doesn't. So this is a way to integrate into her subconscious mind. And this is not mind control, as we mentioned before, but this is a technique that is actually valid, valuable, and it's important to be able to let men know, because if you just suggest something and stop there, as you said, she's going to test you. She's going to see if you really truly believe in your suggestion, or are you kind of like walking on eggshell kind of thing. So you need to really reinforce that statement and always add, please, like support me with this, or try to be open-minded, try this or try that. Always those key sentences, those anchor sentences are crucial to be able to reinforce your statement or your suggestions.
You know what it is you're showing leadership. That's something a leader says. This is what I think we need to do. Would you please support me on this? Think about politicians. That's what they always say. They have a plan and then they say, would you please support me on this? And they say, okay, I support him. So, but if she disagrees with you and undermines with you, like I say, she's just testing you to see if you really are a leader because she wants you to lead. She doesn't. If you give in, she hates you for it.
Yeah.
That's the
Also,
irony.
also what's
We think we're
important
getting peace, we're getting war.
But also, what's important is that if she argued with you, said, okay, can we find a compromise here? So then it's not like you are trying to force her to accept what you're suggesting, but at the same time, you ask her to come back with something that could be a good compromise between what you suggested and what she argued against.
Well, absolutely. If she says, I think your idea overlooks this. Oh, okay, well, maybe you're right. That's a good point. I didn't think of that. And that's what having a good wife is good for. She points out things you didn't see, you overlooked. Oh, okay. That's okay. Let's see how we can make it work. I mean, that's if she's your partner. But if she's just undermining you, she's really testing you and to see if you're a leader. And she's undermining you because she has no respect for you. If
Mhm.
she has respect for you, and if you're a leader, she will have respect you. But if you're weak and passive and a pleaser, she has no respect for you. And like and when you try to take charge, she'll just like bulldoze you because she has no respect. So you have to show her, and you can change. You know, if it's been going along this way for 5 years, you can change it. Just say, this is what I think we should do. Would you please support me on this?
Mhm. But then, the thing is that when you're in the beginning of a relationship, Elliot, you have the mindset of people pleasing. You try to be able to make the relationship, especially during the honeymoon stage. Everything is great, the attraction is there, the fun part, and so on and so forth. So you always try to kind of like get into pleasing the other person, either a man towards a woman or a woman towards a man. But then, don't you create some form of a habit? Because that habit that you allow yourself to be a people pleaser, and then the other person only expect that from you, and then
Right.
they get to a point where if you change your approach, they can say, oh my God, you changed, you became so tough, you became so angry, you became so this, so that. So at the same time, should you be, I would say, type A from the first day that you meet, that you should not be flexible, or should you offer some form of flexibility, but not to a point of pleasing that person constantly?
Well, it's exactly, what you wrote about. You have to have boundaries. So you could please her, you could, you're initially attracted to her. You want to make her happy, and it's all good things, but you have to have boundaries. One of the things that guys learn, and, so we give and we give and we give because we want to make the woman happy. And we think we're teaching her how to be a giver. Well, no, we're teaching her how to be a taker. In the same way, so you give and you give and you give, but at some point you say, well, is she giving to me? Like, I don't need anything from her, but she needs to give to me because I don't want to be with someone who's just a taker. And I want someone that if I need something important from her, that I can say, I really need your help with this. Will she do it for you? That's the main thing. So you have to make sure she is a giver. Like I remember when I went out with a woman, I took her out, I paid for her. And then on the fourth date, she says, I want to pay this time. I said, okay. I think a man takes out a woman, he should pay. But on the fourth date, she says, I want to pay this time. And it's not about the money. It's like she's showing me that she is a giver also. And that made a very positive impression on me. So, it's like yes, you could do things to make the other woman happy, but just realize there's a boundary. Just don't get carried away. Make sure at some point she also does things for you. Like if you say, "Hey, let's go for a hike," and she says, "Okay, I'll pack us a lunch to take on our hike." Oh, okay, I like that. That I'm gonna drive. I'm gonna take her. She's thinking about what she could contribute. That's really the thing. Does she show that she thinks about what she can contribute? That's really important. And if you just pleasing and pleasing and think, well, I don't need anything from her. And at some, if I ever need something, she'll do things for me because I'm done so much for her. Well, you may be very disappointed.
Mhm, that for sure, absolutely. But then again, if you get to a zone or like the nice person, the kind person, the simp, which is the new expression nowadays, isn't that automatically an indicator for a woman to put you in that friend zone, to be able to kind of like, unless if there's like intense physical and sexual attraction between you both, then there's not going to be any friend there, unless friends would benefit. That depends on the situation. But do you think that being too nice makes a woman sees you with a different pair of lens?
Well, the word nice is kind of overused. I mean, you could be giving but it's still at the same time, don't be passive. Just don't accept bad behavior from her. Just don't you know, like that's the mistake people make. Like the woman might treat you badly to test you to see if you'll stand up to her, and then you just accept it, and then then she'll think, well, this guy's not for me. He can't come across as weak and just a pleaser. I mean, you have to use your judgment. Yes, do things for her, buy her gifts, but don't like go so far extreme that she's just taking from you. Like it's I've seen that. I have a friend who, like I said, he has a lot of friends, like girl friends, women friends who have all friend zoned him, and he's a very nice guy, but they see him as weak. He doesn't stand up to them. they think they could just walk all over him, and they don't want to be involved with someone like that. So you've got to use your judgment. Like, where are the boundaries? Yes, I'll take her out. I'll pay for her. I'll do this. I'll do whatever I can to help her. But where's the line that says, "Hey, wait, I got to make sure she's not just a taker." You've got to use your judgment.
Mm. But here's the thing, Elliot. I mean, now that we see online all the influencers or those who actually have some good sense to share, because a lot of it is actually bullshit, to be honest with you. But some for those who actually have to share like some good tips and all. I mean, okay, for example, if you look at Andrew Tate, okay, a misogynist, and a lot of people like treat him as such. He's the extreme. Okay, so yeah, we have to kind of find the right balance in terms of how do we approach dating in the 21st century. But we talk about a passive, I would say, mentality. And when someone has confidence in dating and he makes plans, he tells, okay, get dressed here, we're going to go there, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But then again, after a while, the dynamic changes because comfort sets in. And when comfort sets in, both the women and the men will change attitude, which is either they will become uncaring or they will not put as much energy, as much attention because the chase is over. So when that happens, is our women no longer feel challenged to be with a person like that, that no longer provide the same initiative and same energy as they did in the beginning of the relationship, versus when comfort sets in, both people in question are more likely to kind of get to another level in their relationship?
That's a good question. And what you're talking about is, I think at some point, you've been going for a while, you start taking each other for granted.
Mhm.
And that's really, when you start taking the other person for granted, you have to really catch yourself and realize if you want this relationship to last, to be solid, you can't take each other for granted. And it's really, you have to keep on, like, make her feel special. Like at the beginning, let's say a man takes out a woman, he buys her a gift, buys her flowers, he does all these things. But then just after, like, you're with together for a while, don't just take that person for granted. Don't think you don't have to tell them appreciation. One thing I tell people is tell your partner how much you appreciate them. Don't just take for granted whatever they do. Just think, well, if your girlfriend makes you dinner, well, yeah, she's supposed to. Well, yes, but you may feel that, but tell her you appreciate what she does. Whatever. And then same for a woman. If a man does things for you, buys you a gift, tell him you appreciate him. If he goes shopping and he thinks, oh, what does my girlfriend need? I mean, I'll pick up a few things for her. He's thinking about you. Tell him you appreciate it. People really want to be appreciated, and it's not just in relationships, it's in the workplace. You want a job where you feel valued and appreciated. Everybody wants to feel what they're doing is being appreciated. So I think you have to catch yourself when you're getting to the stage of feeling that you're going to take the person for granted, and you gotta, like, you know, you can't, and you gotta keep the that initial fire burning. Like, treat her like a queen, make her feel special.
Mm.
It, it it's it's
So,
otherwise it's just gonna fizzle out.
but if you're consistent with certain aspect of relationship, for example, if a woman's love language is physical touch or words of affirmation or gift, whatever it is, and you're consistent with that, with her love language, do you think this is something that will keep the longevity of the relationship? You may change in terms of other things in your life or because of stress, because of this and that she can basically just brush it off. But do you think that if you're consistent with certain things in her personality, do you think that can actually create a much more loving relationship?
Well, obviously, you have to be consistent. You have to know really what makes her happy. It's talking about different love languages. Like, what does she need? How does she need to be spoken to? That's really, like, I tell people, think, what does your wife need to hear? It's not what you want to say. It's what does she need to hear? So it's be consistent, know what she needs to hear, know what she likes to be told, and just keep on doing it, because once you get to know her, and you know, it's she appreciates being told certain things, being, you know, whatever the love language is, being gifts of certain things. You know, it's just keep on showing her that you value her and appreciate her. It's you really need to do that, and like when once you get start, you know, taking each other for granted, and you know, once you get married and have kids and you're exhausted every single day, save some energy to make her feel special, you know?
But okay, so before we conclude this workshop here, Elliot, if you could just give a very brief, like you have maybe a couple minutes left here and there, but what would someone, a man who listens to this workshop on their way to work and they're dealing with some challenges in their relationship with their significant other or their wife, whatever it is, what would be the first thing that you would say, or like maybe a couple of tips that you would give?
Well, it's like I said, you know, very often, you know, when people go for counseling, this happens all the time. Like you, very often you're in a difficult relationship. You want to blame the other person, and you think the only solution is for the other person to change, and like you're stuck. It's like, well, they're not changing. What do I do? How do I get the other person to change? And the first thing that's so important to realize is look at yourself, engage in some self-reflection, and think about how do you have to change yourself to transform the relationship. And you know, that's why I wrote these books, because like men will say to me, I never know this stuff. So look for answers, look for wisdom that you can apply to yourself and change yourself and get your spouse to respond differently to you. It's really like it's like it's empowering. At first, like you feel so powerless because you think the only thing is she has to change. And how do I get her to change? She doesn't listen. But how do you change yourself to get her to respond to you in a positive, loving, and respectful way? It's really amazing. Like men weren't, like I said, men weren't taught this. You just have to seek out this wisdom. And you know, you can read my book. I'm not here to sell you the book, but it's a lot cheaper than a divorce.
I like that approach. Absolutely. But before we conclude today's workshop, Elliot, if you could please just take maybe like a few seconds left to be able to share your contact information so anyone who's interested in your services, they know how to reach you.
Okay. It's my website is elliottKatz.com, ELLIOTTKATZ.com. And my email is elliottRkatz, ELLIOTTRKATZ at AOL.com. And I'm happy to talk to people. If you want to spend a half an hour just talking, you know, no charges, let's say, to see if we have something we could work together on. My goal is really to make a difference, to bring peace between a wife and a husband, and that children not be from broken homes.
Mhm.
So really, I'm happy to talk to people and just share. If I could help you, please call me and let's talk. See, I can help you make a difference. It's very rewarding for me, and I'm sure it's rewarding for you, Dan, when you are able to bring peace between a husband and wife.
Absolutely. But I mean, I'm gonna definitely have you to send me a bio about yourself. So we will put all your information in the description of this workshop. So when we're going to publish it on Spotify, YouTube, and so on and so forth, we'll be able to have people know where to reach you. And also, we're gonna send you, Elliot, a copy of this workshop, so you could actually upload it to your website, and people can actually see the workshop and get to understand a little bit more about the topic that we covered today. But on that note, thank you so much for taking the time out of your relaxing Sunday afternoon, Elliot, to join us and engage with the valuable tips and advice that you shared today. And we also look forward to all of our upcoming workshops throughout 2026, featuring new expert panelists and a wide range of engaging topics focused on dating and relationships. So I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful rest of your Sunday afternoon, and we look forward to connecting with you all very soon. Signing off for now.